All right, welcome to the deep dive, where we help you get right to the heart of complex
That
topics.
without getting lost in the weeds.
Exactly. No fluff, just pure insight.
Today, we're diving into the research strategy at Mahidol University.
Yeah, and to be clear,
Yeah.
we're going to be looking at a presentation given by Associate Professor Dr. Yokshanan Wangsawat.
The vice president for research.
And this isn't just about, the internal workings of one university.
Right.
It's about getting a glimpse at the bigger picture of,
Research.
how research is being shaped.
How one of Thailand's leading universities is
Yeah.
positioning itself on the global stage.
Absolutely. So whether you're, deep in the world of academia or just someone who's, fascinated by how innovation happens,
Right.
this deep dive is going to give you some really valuable perspective.
Absolutely.
And just to give you an idea of our source material today,
Yeah.
we're looking at a transcript of a presentation
From the Rama Research YouTube channel,
straight from the source.
straight from the source.
So we're going to break down those key insights and trends,
Yep.
really make sure they make sense, and give you something to think about.
So you can get a clear picture
Yeah.
of where research and innovation is heading.
Okay, so one of the first things that jumped out at me was a shift in language.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like Mahidol is moving away from talking about global impact
Interesting.
and instead really emphasizing real-world impact.
Mm.
So what's the thinking behind that change, do you think?
I think there is a move to measure success,
Yeah.
not just by how far your research reaches,
Yeah.
but by, what actual positive changes it makes.
Right, so it's not just about publishing in prestigious journals.
It's about making a real difference.
Tangible outcomes.
Yeah.
I think that really resonates with a lot of people.
And it's also really good for
Yeah.
demonstrating impact in a concrete way.
Yeah.
Local change, if it's deep, if it makes a real difference, can be more achievable, more measurable in the short term.
Right. It's about those smaller scale wins that really add up.
Yeah, and also
Yeah.
it seems like this emphasis on real-world impact
Yeah. Yeah.
is also linked to a closer alignment between research and innovation.
Yeah. There's that sense that they're two sides of the same coin,
Absolutely.
not just separate activities happening in silos.
Yeah, they're really trying to integrate research and innovation because ultimately it's innovation that brings those research findings into
the real world.
Yeah.
Now, here's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
Dr. Wangsawat attended this STF forum in Japan,
Mm-hmm.
and he was in the company of over 20 Nobel laureates.
An economic form of research, he called
So he
it.
called it an economic form of research.
Yeah.
So what were some of the major global trends that he brought back from that experience?
Well, he talked about 5 overarching trends that really stood out.
Okay.
And the first and most fundamental one, I think, was the widespread integration of AI across all fields of research.
It's everywhere now.
Yeah. He even called AI the black box that underpins much of modern research.
So black box, meaning that we don't necessarily need to understand all the intricacies of how it works.
Right. It's more about using the tools.
Yeah, we just need to know how to use it effectively.
Yeah, exactly. We've got to empower researchers to be able to utilize these incredibly powerful tools.
Mm-hmm.
He even mentioned upcoming training sessions at Mahidol to help with this.
Wow.
Think about it like adopting new statistical software a few decades ago.
Yeah.
Now AI is becoming that essential.
And the thing is, it's not just one type of AI.
Right.
We're talking about machine learning, deep learning,
Natural language processing.
all these different branches that are really starting to permeate every aspect of research.
Absolutely.
And that's just the first trend.
Right.
What was the second one that stood out to you?
Well, the second one was a renewed focus on the global health system.
Right. I mean, post-COVID.
Yet the pandemic really underscored how interconnected we all are when it comes to health.
Totally.
And there's a real push now to make sure that everyone
Yeah.
has access to the best healthcare solutions.
Equitable access.
Yeah. And that's where this concept of balanced innovation comes in.
Okay.
And using technology in a way that actually reaches everyone.
So it's not just about developing new drugs or new treatments. It's about making sure those innovations are actually accessible.
Absolutely. And this ties in with Rama's strategic direction as well.
Mm-hmm.
They're very much aligned with this global imperative.
So what were the other 3 trends? I know we had 5 in total.
Yeah, the other 3 were the emergence of the hydrogen economy,
Okay.
the increasing importance of green technology,
Worse.
and a growing focus on quantum sensing.
Quantum sensing.
Yeah. Particularly its use for precise measurement in quantum technologies.
That's fascinating. Okay, so we've got these big overarching trends. But then Dr. Wangswat also highlighted a couple of specific enabling technologies that really caught my attention. He talked about biosensors, for example.
Yeah, biosensors are seen as absolutely vital
Okay.
for feeding real-world data into those AI systems.
So they're like the data providers, the fuel.
Yeah, if you can develop effective, reliable biosensors,
Yeah.
you're in a powerful position.
That's really interesting.
They're the key to generating the insights.
Mm-hmm.
And another important aspect he talked about
Yeah.
was data management and cybersecurity for universities.
Right. So that whole infrastructure side of things.
Yeah, because universities are now dealing with
Enormous amounts of data.
huge amounts of data,
Yeah.
and they need to be able to store it securely,
Yeah.
but also share it safely with collaborators.
It's all about trust and transparency.
It's absolutely crucial
Mm-hmm.
if you want to attract top research partners.
Right, because they need to know that their data is in safe hands. And then there was the concept of the digital twin, which I usually think of in the context of engineering. But he was actually talking about applying it to ecological systems.
Yeah, it's really interesting how the idea of the digital twin
Yeah.
is expanding beyond,
Yeah.
modeling machinery.
Yeah, it's not just about a digital replica of a jet engine.
No, they're talking about creating sophisticated virtual representations of entire ecosystems.
So like a virtual forest to study the impacts of deforestation.
Exactly. You can run all sorts of simulations
And you can play with different scenarios.
without actually having to manipulate the real world.
It's like a giant sandbox.
It is.
It's a powerful tool.
And the really fascinating thing is how all of these key areas are starting to converge.
Yeah, they're not developing in isolation, are they?
Not at all. Dr. Wansowet really emphasized that we're seeing increasing convergence between AI, climate change research, healthcare advancements.
And digital transformation.
Exactly.
All these things are interlinked.
And he was very aware of both the positive potential
Yeah.
and the challenges that come with that.
He called it the light and the shadows.
Yeah, it was a very insightful way to frame it.
So it's not just about blindly embracing these powerful technologies.
Yeah.
It's about being mindful of their potential impact.
Yeah, and understanding the ethical considerations that come along with them.
He also stressed the importance of that synergy between high tech and humanity.
Yeah, it's about making sure that technological advancements
Yeah.
are balanced with human and social needs.
And there was even a suggestion to rethink the name of the forum
Yeah.
to better reflect that integration.
Yeah, to make it clear that technology should be serving humanity.
Absolutely. And speaking of technology serving humanity,
Yeah.
we can't ignore the disruptive potential of AI to really accelerate the research process itself.
Yeah, the forum really highlighted how
Yeah.
AI can significantly speed up
Yeah.
research, maybe reduce the time it takes.
The resources required for experiments.
Exactly. So
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
it emphasizes the need for researchers to embrace these tools.
To stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so now let's shift gears a little bit
Mm.
and focus on Mahidol University's own strategy.
Yeah.
Dr. Wangsawat presented a really holistic view of the research life cycle.
Yeah.
And it's clear that for them, it's not just about publishing papers.
No, not at all.
It's about making sure that that research actually has an impact.
Yeah, they're focused on the whole journey.
Yeah.
From the initial discoveries in the lab
Yeah.
all the way through to practical application and benefit for society.
So taking that research out of the lab and into the real world.
Exactly. They want to see that their work is making a tangible difference.
And that brings us to the importance of things like licensing and collaborations with companies.
Yeah, Dr. Wanswat was very clear
Yeah.
that licensing and collaboration are not bad things.
Right. They're essential.
Yeah, they're essential ways,
To get that research out there.
yeah, to ensure that those research outcomes reach a wider audience.
So it's about normalizing those partnerships.
Yeah, and making sure researchers understand how
Wow.
important they are.
And he also addressed that valley of death concept.
Ah, yes, the Valley of Death.
That gap between a promising prototype and actually getting a product to market.
It's where so many good ideas fall apart.
So how is Mahidol trying to bridge that gap?
Well, they're working on embedding innovation thinking
Okay.
throughout the whole research process.
So it's not just about doing the research and then thinking about innovation later.
No, it's about having that innovation mindset from the beginning.
Right from the start.
Yeah, and for clinical trials, for example,
Yeah.
he outlined a very clear three-stage process.
Okay.
First, You have to achieve scientific validation in the lab.
Mm-hmm.
Then you scale up production to meet quality standards.
Okay.
And then you move on to multi-center trials.
So it's a phased approach.
Yeah, it's a process.
And I guess once you've gone through those stages,
Yeah,
it becomes much more attractive for a company to come in and license that technology.
exactly, because they can see
Yeah.
that it's been rigorously tested.
That it's got potential.
Yeah. And it's important to remember
Yeah.
that this is not a one-way street.
Yep.
The feedback from real-world applications
Yeah.
can then inform and refine the ongoing research.
So it's a constant cycle of improvement.
It is. It's a very dynamic process.
Now, Mahidol University has a pretty impressive track record
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to research output.
Yeah, they produce a lot of research.
They do, and they've got expertise across so many different fields.
Yeah, that's one of their strengths.
So how are they leveraging that internal expertise?
Well, Dr. Wangswat really stressed the importance of internal collaboration.
Okay.
He said researchers should look within the university first.
Before going outside.
Yeah, before looking for external partners.
Makes sense.
And he even gave the example of Nobel laureates.
Oh, interesting.
He said they tend to publish a lot in their early years,
Okay.
but then as their careers progress,
Yeah.
they start collaborating more and more.
So collaboration is key to really making an impact.
It seems to be a hallmark of impactful research.
And I imagine that internal collaboration can lead to some really unexpected breakthroughs.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you've got people from different disciplines
Right.
bringing their unique perspectives to the table.
It's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
When you can combine expertise
Yeah.
from seemingly unrelated fields.
And that often comes from having those ambitious goals
Yeah,
that really require that multidisciplinary approach.
exactly. It's about tackling those big, complex questions.
Which brings us to the Nobel Prize Research Initiative.
Ah, yes, a very ambitious initiative.
Setting the bar high.
They're aiming to cultivate research
Yeah.
with the potential for Nobel Prize level impact.
That's a bold vision.
It is, and it's built on 3 key pillars.
Okay.
The first is the Synergy Research Platform.
Okay, tell me about that one.
So this platform is designed to identify those really significant research questions
Yeah.
that are complex and require collaboration.
So it's about supporting those big, ambitious projects
Exactly. It's about giving researchers the resources and the support they need.
to really swing for the fences.
Yeah, to go after those groundbreaking discoveries.
I love it.
And the second pillar is all about increasing TRL.
Technology readiness level.
Yes. So taking that promising research
Yeah.
and moving it closer to real-world application.
So it's about bridging that gap between research and development.
Exactly. Connecting researchers with the resources they need,
Mm-hmm.
maybe even with potential industry partners.
So it's not just about doing the research. It's about making sure that research can actually be translated into something tangible.
Absolutely.
And what's the third pillar?
The third pillar is speed.
Speed.
Yeah, they're really emphasizing the need to accelerate the research and innovation process.
So streamlining things, making things more efficient.
Exactly. They're even implementing a virtual account system
Wow.
so that researchers can get their funding faster.
Because time is of the essence.
Absolutely, especially in today's fast-paced world.
So we've got these ambitious internal initiatives.
Yeah.
But Mahidol is also really smart about leveraging its assets and building external partnerships.
Right. They recognize that they can't do everything on their own.
And they don't have to.
Exactly. They've got a huge advantage.
Yeah.
Being such a large and multidisciplinary university.
And they're encouraging their researchers to tap into that internal expertise.
Yeah, but they're also proactively building partnerships
Mm-hmm.
with external organizations like NSTDA.
And other universities like Chulalongkorn and Bangmod.
Exactly. They want to give their researchers access to the best facilities and equipment.
So it's about creating a really strong research ecosystem.
It is, and they're also setting up joint funding programs
Right, I heard about those.
to support collaborative projects.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they've got a program with Bangmod where they're offering like 500,000 BAT grants.
Yep, and they're also collaborating with Siraj Hospital
Siraj Pia Maharaj Karun Hospital.
for translational research.
Right, because that's a key part of that pipeline.
Yeah, getting those research findings into clinical practice.
And they've also got this One Health Research Network.
Yeah, which is a great example of interdisciplinary collaboration.
Working across those traditional boundaries.
Exactly. And they're even working on creating a one-stop channel.
So researchers can easily find all the resources they need.
Yeah, it's all about making things easier for researchers.
So they can focus on doing what they do best.
Absolutely.
And of course, none of this would be possible without supporting the researchers themselves.
Right. They need the right training and resources.
So what kind of programs does Mahidol have in place?
Well, they've got these intensive llama research courses,
Yeah.
which are really popular,
Okay.
and they're designed to enhance researchers' skills and knowledge.
To give them the tools they need to succeed.
Yeah, and they're also incorporating insights
Yeah.
from people with experience in international innovation platforms.
So it's not just theoretical.
No, it's very practical.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also encouraging researchers
Yeah.
to update their online profiles with photos.
Because that's so important these days.
Yeah, it helps to build those international collaborations.
People want to know who they're working with.
Right, and then they've got the inside program.
Yeah, tell me about that.
So this program uses university data and AI tools,
Even ChatGPT.
including ChatGPT, yeah,
Wow.
to help researchers identify emerging research topics.
So it's like a research trend spotting tool.
Yeah, and it can also help them find potential collaborators.
Within the university.
Yeah, so it's another great way to foster collaboration.
What about funding opportunities?
Well, there's a clear timeline
Right.
of internal research funding opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
which is available on the research division's website.
And it covers the whole academic year.
Yeah, so researchers can plan ahead.
So they know when to apply for different grants.
Exactly, and there are grants for different stages of research.
Like seed grants, early career grants.
Yeah, they've got starter grants, ring grants.
Distinguished scholar grants.
Yeah, and research utilization grants.
Which are specifically for bridging that gap.
Right, between research and application.
And they also have joint funding opportunities with NSTDA and BangMod. Yeah, so lots of options there.
And they also provide support
Yeah.
for manuscript preparation and publication.
Okay.
And they offer information and assistance
Yeah.
with international funding opportunities.
So they're really trying to help their researchers
Yeah, they're very supportive.
secure the funding they need.
Absolutely.
And of course, recognition is also important.
Yes, celebrating success.
So what does Mahidol do to recognize its top researchers?
Well, they have the Mahidol Prize.
Which is a big international award.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they're also increasingly focusing on recognizing impactful research within Thailand.
Right, making sure that those local contributions are celebrated.
Exactly, and one example of that is the Young Scientist Award.
I heard about that.
Yeah, it comes with a pretty significant cash prize.
And they're actively looking for nominations.
Yes, and the deadline for the Young Scientist Award has actually been extended.
So if you know someone who deserves to be recognized,
Yeah,
now's the time to nominate them.
absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about research strategy, funding, recognition, but let's not forget about the administrative side of things,
Yeah, the nuts and bolts.
because that can have a big impact on researchers' productivity.
Absolutely. If you're bogged down in bureaucracy,
Yeah.
it's hard to get your work done.
So is Mahedal doing anything to streamline those processes?
Yeah, they're working on making it easier
Okay.
to access central research equipment.
Okay.
They've even got a new Krios microscope,
Oh, wow.
and they're implementing a reserve fund system.
So researchers can access their grant money more quickly.
Exactly. No more waiting around.
And they're simplifying the contract signing process.
Yeah, less paperwork.
Less hassle.
And they've also clarified the regulations
Okay.
around research on narcotics.
So researchers know exactly what's allowed,
Yeah, clear guidelines.
which is important.
It is. It helps everyone stay on the right side of the law.
So overall, it seems like Mahidol is really committed
Yeah.
to creating a supportive and efficient research environment.
Absolutely. They want their researchers
Yeah.
to be able to focus on doing what they do best.
So this has been a fascinating deep dive
Yeah.
into the research policies and initiatives at Mahidol University.
We've learned a lot.
We have. Let's quickly recap some of those key takeaways.
Okay, so first of all,
Yeah.
Mahidol is really focused on real-world impact.
Not just publications.
Yeah, they want to see their research making a difference.
And they're aligning themselves
Yeah,
with those major global trends.
like AI and the focus on health.
And they've got this comprehensive approach to supporting both research and innovation.
From start to finish.
They're really emphasizing collaboration,
Yeah.
both internally and with external partners.
And they've got a wide range of resources and funding
They
opportunities.
support their researchers at all levels.
It's a very impressive system.
It is. So for you, the listener,
Yeah.
how can understanding these strategies and these global trends be relevant to your own work?
Even if you're not a researcher at Mahidol.
Right, even if you're not in academia at all.
Well, I think the key takeaway is that mindset shift towards demonstrating real-world impact.
All right, it's not just about the ideas.
It's about making those ideas a reality.
And understanding the potential of technologies like AI.
Yeah, and embracing the power of collaboration.
So for our final thought today,
Yeah.
we challenge you to think about how you can apply these principles in your own area of interest.
What are the big questions in your field
Yeah.
that are ripe for collaboration?
And how can you translate your ideas into something that has a tangible impact?
Go make a difference.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.
See you then.